I have 9 o'clock, and I'd like to call the May 18, 2026 Board of County Commissioners meeting to order. At this time, I do recognize we have a quorum. At this time, Commissioner Thomas, will you lead us in our invocation?
Let us all pray. Our Father who art in heaven, we come to you today thanking you for all the blessings in life. We want to thank you for watching over us. We want to thank you for being with us and guiding us as only you can. Lord, we want to thank you for being with all our law enforcement, our fire, our EMS, all those that answer the call, God. We ask you just to be with each one of those and just be with them as only you can and lead them, guide them, keep them all safe. We want to ask you to be with our soldiers, God, that are putting their life on the line so we can have this freedom, God. And we thank you for those that have served in the past so we can have freedom, God, and we can live in a free country. We thank you for those that laid their lives on the line, God. God, we ask you to be at this board as we make decisions for the upcoming year. God, help us to make the correct decisions. Lead us, just guide us as only you can, and hopefully we put all our trust in you, God. We thank you for giving your son that he went and died on the cross so we can have eternal life. And we ask you just to be with us, God, and forgive us of all our sins where we come short. And just thank you for loving us and being the Father that you are. In your heavenly name I do pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Commissioner Long, will you lead us in a pledge of allegiance?
Everybody please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Members of the board, you have the agenda before you. Is there any discussion or adjustments to said agenda? Having heard none, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all in favor, please vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. The agenda's been approved. Item number 5A, Income Maintenance Appreciation Proclamation. Ms. Hampton.
Good morning, Chair, Board of Commissioners. As Social Services Director and on behalf of the department, thank you for recognizing this month as Income Maintenance Workers Appreciation Month. The program administrator, supervisors, and any other members of our staff, please stand. Whereas income maintenance staff in Person County serve as dedicated public servants who work diligently to ensure individuals, families have access to assistance programs and supportive services that promote health, stability, and self-sufficiency. And whereas income maintenance staff administer essential programs including food and nutrition services, Medicaid, and other economic support programs that strengthen communities and improve quality of life. And whereas these professionals demonstrate compassion, integrity, professionalism, and commitment while assisting vulnerable populations during times of hardship, crisis, and transition. And whereas the work performed by income maintenance staff requires extensive knowledge of federal, state, and local policies, attention to detail, adaptability, and dedication to providing exceptional customer service to the citizens of Person County. And whereas efforts of income maintenance staff contribute significantly to the health, the safety, and the economic well-being of children, families, older adults, and the individuals throughout the county. And whereas the Person County Board of Commissioners recognizes and celebrates the outstanding service, perseverance, and commitment demonstrated daily by income maintenance staff and express appreciation for their invaluable contributions to public service. And
Now therefore be it resolved that the Person County Board of Commissioners hereby proclaims May 2026 as Income Maintenance Appreciation Month in Person County and encourages all residents to join in celebrating the dedication, service, and transformative impact of our local income maintenance staff. Members of the board, do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
I have a motion. All in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Adopted this 18th day of May 2026. Signed, Kyle Pereira, Chairman of the Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank each of you for your hard work and your dedication to your service and to the county. Members of the board, would you like to say any other words?
I would also like to thank the Economic Services Income Maintenance team for their hard work. I don't think people realize how much goes into what you all do. The number of people who are on your caseloads, the number of families y'all serve. Y'all are making sure people are fed who needs that assistance, making sure people are receiving health benefits who needs that assistance. Families with relatives in long-term care, making sure those benefits are there so that their family members can receive the proper care that they need to when they can't be cared for in the home. So I appreciate it. I know what you all do, and thank you all again for what you all do for Person County.
Well, Item 6, informal comment period. We do have a 10-minute period for public comments. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone sign up?
No, sir, we do not.
We do not. Okay, moving on to item number 7, the discussion adjustment of consent agenda. Any discussion or adjustments to said agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda with an adjustment to the minutes as reflected in the email that I shared with the clerk and the commissioners.
Any questions? Discussion? Having heard none, I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the adjustments.
So moved.
All in favor, please vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay. The ayes have it, 4-1. Item 8A, Mayo Lake Cabin naming John Hill.
Good morning, Commissioners. So as you know, on March 31st of this year, we lost one of our Person County employees, one of our great team members to the Recreation Arts and Parks Department, Mr. Mark Ashley. Mark was very integral to the operations of Person County Recreation Arts and Parks. He has worked in multiple areas of the park system, from the Kirby Cultural Arts Complex to Mayo Park, from athletics to special programs, Special Olympics. He cooked hot dogs for Special Olympics for years and years, and he's going to be missed in his community, and he's definitely going to be missed by all the park patrons and the staff, a team. And on behalf of the Recreation Arts and Parks staff and the Recreation Advisory Board, we're recommending that we name the new camping cabin at Mayo Lake Park in honor of Mark Ashley's service. He was the fourth longest employed at the Recreation Arts and Parks Department.
Members of the board, any questions for the director?
Make a motion to approve.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the intent to consider the adoption of a resolution on our June 1st meeting 2026 and naming the Mayo Park camping cabin in honor of the service of our long-term county employee, Mark Ashley. Members of the board, we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Having hearing none, all in favor, please vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion's been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item 8B, manager's recommended budget. County manager.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Chairman, Commissioners. It is my pleasure to present the fiscal year 27 manager's recommended budget to the board. We have gone through an extensive process to get to this point in our budget year, and I would like to thank you all for your time and feedback so far, as well as our staff who have worked very hard in putting this recommended budget together. We do have members of our budget team here this morning, our Chief Financial Officer, Tracy Clayton, and HR Director, Sonia Carver, our Tax Administrator, Russell Jones, and our Assistant Finance Director, Debbie Whitfield. So all of us are available to answer questions that you may have as we go along. We also have other department heads here today, and I just appreciate all of their efforts, as well as staff throughout the departments who have helped us put this together. So I will walk through a number of slides which will give you many of the details that are available in the printed document that you have at your places. So this is the full budget document here. And again, stop me at any time if you have any questions as I move along. I would like to highlight some of the accomplishments that we have seen in the current fiscal year. Many of these are directly related to planning that we have done through the strategic planning process and ways that that has fed into the current budget. It reflects priorities of the Board of Commissioners and the public here in Person County. So as far as economic opportunity and growth, we have made significant progress out at Raleigh Regional Airport at Person County. We've completed the runway, taxiway, and apron rehabilitation and access road rehabilitation projects. We've completed the design for the new terminal building. We do have some funding in place for that, and we are pursuing grant opportunities currently. You as a board have approved planning ordinance text amendments that improve the development process and supported plans for Duke Energy's Person County Energy Complex. We have celebrated the groundbreaking for that particular project. We have also continued to work on expanding broadband access throughout the county in partnership with North Carolina Department of Information Technology, Spectrum, and Brightspeed, and we have utilized American Rescue Plan Act funding that the county has received in the form of grants for these expansion projects. So we are still working towards 100% connectivity throughout the county. Within capital investment and lifelong learning focus areas, we have completed construction and have a soft opening at Centennial Park. We've initiated funding mechanisms for school improvements, so that will be through the 2027 limited obligation bonds. And then you all will be discussing the potential November 2026 GO bond referendum. But we have been working through those processes in the event that the board decides to move forward. Service excellence, we recognized our volunteer advisory board members and provided training for volunteers and liaisons, and we offered the Fall and Spring Civics Academy. As far as quality of life, some of the projects that we have completed within that focus area are implementing the Mobile Integrated Healthcare Program Post-Overdose Response Team, and working hard to ensure public safety and recovery during severe weather events. So these are just some of the examples of accomplishments that I have chosen to highlight this morning, but there are certainly many others throughout all the departments of county government. During your budget retreat in February, we did talk about some of the big ticket items that we anticipated as being drivers as we put together the fiscal year 27 recommended budget. At the time, we had 16 new position requests, I believe, and I am recommending 7 of those in this budget. We had evaluated the need for a cost of living adjustment. Back in February, the index that we use was estimating right around 3%, and that has held steady over the last few months. It's actually creeped up a little bit to about 3.3, but we have included the 3% cost of living adjustment in this budget. We were facing an 11% increase in our health insurance. We did work with our broker and made some small changes to a specific program within our health plan to bring that renewal down to an 8.8% increase, which is still below trend. And we are currently working on finalizing the results of a public safety pay study. That is not included in the recommended budget. We are working on some funding strategies for that if the board does choose to move forward with implementing that study. As far as services go, we do have increasing expenses for legal services as well as jail medical, and y'all received a presentation from the sheriff on that in the past month and have approved making some changes in that area. And then with facilities, we continue to have maintenance needs that needs to be addressed both with the county and the school system and PCC, and space constraints that we are continuing to work through and look for solutions. When it comes to equipment and supplies, the contract for jail or inmate food services in the jail has gone up, as well as just the overall cost for technology needs within our county departments and funding those. With economic development, we have funded the Economic Catalyst Fund at the current level that's funded in fiscal year 26 to continue the recruitment incentives that are currently in place for Spuntech and Pollywood, and to create a reserve for future incentives that the board may approve for economic development projects or for other projects to further the county's economic development efforts. And then for education funding, there are increases funding included to meet the needs of Person County Schools and Piedmont Community College, as their expenses are growing just as the counties are. I just want to highlight within our strategic plan, we have these 5 focus areas that we have supporting goals and strategies that we are seeking to meet. Throughout the budget document, you will see how departments have tied their budget objectives for the upcoming year to these specific areas. And there is a key at the beginning of the budget document in the manager's message that shows you what letter each of these are linked to later in the document. So some of the highlights as far as how we are seeking to accomplish or meet some of those goals established by the strategic plan would be continuing to use ARPA funding. We have some reserved for the new airport terminal, as well as continued broadband expansion. The Economic Catalyst Fund, as I mentioned, continues to be funded at the current level, and is also building up a fund balance for other economic development needs in the future. And then the airport runway extension project is progressing, and it is fully funded. Within lifelong learning, the CIP includes $10.2 million in debt for the next issuance of LOBs for accessibility, safety, and security improvements at 5 elementary schools, and the build-out of Stories Creek Elementary. And we will also continue to fund broadband expansion. And then for and I'm sorry, I misspoke on that particular category. The next one is lifelong learning, and PCS is currently funded for their current expense, totaling $15 million. That's a 5.2% increase, and PCC's current expense funding is included, totaling $1.9 million, which is a 3% increase over the current year's funding. We continue to invest in our employees with the cost of living adjustment and funding merit pay. So those two combination of pay increases over the upcoming year help ensure that we remain competitive with the market and that we reward our employees who continue to gain experience in their service delivery to Person County. Within animal services, we have budgeted for an in-house mobile spay and neuter clinic, and this is mostly offset through increased adoption fees. And then we are working on a countywide website redesign to meet federal ADA requirements to ensure that our website is accessible and to just improve the ease of use and information available to the public. Within quality of life, we've received very positive feedback about the Sheriff's Roadside Cleanup Program and the efforts that they are making out in the county to make improvements to our roadsides. And then we will continue utilizing opioid settlement funding for a variety of projects, including the post-overdose response team and emergency services, early intervention programs within PCS, and recovery housing support with Freedom House. And you'll hear a little bit more about that when Janet makes a presentation for your next item. So the general fund itself is $88.4 million for fiscal year 27. This is an increase of $3.3 million or 3.89%. The budget for all funds totals $113.4 million. This is an increase of $4.6 million or 4.24%. You will see here the expenditure categories that are funded within the general fund. There is additional detail provided within the budget documents as far as, and this one is actually the revenue category. I'm going to go through revenues first. So these are the sources of revenue for the general fund. Property taxes make up the majority of the funding in the general fund at 57.2%. And then we also have sales tax and intergovernmental revenues and charges for service that make up the bulk of the revenues that support this particular fund. And I will go into each of those in a little more detail. So this budget results in no change in the current tax rate. So our property tax rate is set at 63 cents. And our fire and rescue tax rate is 4 cents. So we are seeing natural growth in our revenues, so that does help support a budget that keeps the current tax rate, but does accommodate increasing expenses in many areas. So we do anticipate to generate $47 million in property taxes from that 63-cent tax rate this year. So that's an increase of $1.6 million over the current year. And with the fire tax, we anticipate seeing collections of $109,000 above the current year collections when we budget at the current tax rate. And that's due to natural growth in the tax base. So it is new homes that have been built. It's increased values as a result of property that has changed hands over the current year. And it's other investments that have been made in the community in terms of industry expansions, new equipment, and those types of things that contribute to our tax base, as well as growth within DMV and the value of vehicles that our residents are paying taxes on. So the value of 1 penny on the tax rate is $795,856, and we are budgeting at a collection rate of 98.5%. We had, up until last year, historically budgeted at a more conservative level of 97.5%. We did increase that for the current fiscal year, and this, we exceed the 98%, 98.5%. We have been trending right around 99.5% for the past several years, and so our tax office staff is to be commended for their efforts in having that incredible collection rate. We do know that in our estimating tax revenues, there's a big unknown with our public service companies. We do not receive estimates on their values from the state until around the September timeframe. We also have some large industrial taxpayers that if one of them was not able to pay their tax bill on time, that could greatly affect our tax rate. So that 98.5% we feel like is a realistic collection level for fiscal year 27 for budgeting purposes, although it is certainly our goal to exceed that. Some general fund highlights, I have mentioned property taxes. DMV taxes, due to the growth in that portion of the tax base, is expected to result in about $151,000 in additional revenues. And we are seeing growth in sales taxes, so that is over and above what we've budgeted this year. So based on what we are currently collecting in sales taxes, we anticipate that trend continuing into next year. So we have estimated a 4.7% increase over the current budget, which is $639,000 in additional revenues. And then with interest earnings, I would like to commend our finance staff who are employing more active cash management strategies. They are seeing higher interest earnings on our investments, and so we are budgeting an increase there, which we would anticipate resulting in about $300,000 in additional revenue for next year. Here's a little bit more about the sales tax. You can see, although we are projecting that 4.7% increase over budget for the current fiscal year, we are looking at it remaining pretty flat considering what we are currently bringing in between 26 and 27. That estimate is $14.35 million in sales tax. As a reminder, the rate of sales tax that we pay is 6.75 cents, and the county does receive 2 cents of those collections from the state. Fund balance. So we as a county are required to maintain a fund balance, and that is our savings account. And it provides for cash flow as property taxes are not paid on July 1st. Property taxes come in slowly over that first 6 months of the budget year, so we need to make sure that we have cash on hand to pay for our expenses. And then if we were to have unanticipated expenses or an unanticipated loss of revenues, then we would have that fund balance to turn to utilize in the event that we needed to cover those. It is an indicator of the health of an organization's finances. And it also contributes to our bond rating, which is very important right now, considering we're preparing to issue the limited obligation bonds in the upcoming fiscal year, and that we may also be going out for a bond rating related to GO bonds in the future. Best practices is to limit fund balance spending to one-time, non-recurring needs, such as significant capital needs or other unanticipated one-time expenses. And the board has adopted a fund balance policy with the goal of maintaining 25% or higher fund balance, and that the board can elect to transfer excess of 25% into the capital investment fund to fund future needs. So this gives you a chart of where our fund balance has ended over the last decade. So in the last fiscal year, at the end of fiscal year 25, our fund balance did exceed that 25% mark. So we were at 25.9%. We still have that $750,000-ish that is the excess over the 25% residing in fund balance, that it has not been transferred to the capital investment fund, because we're continuing to monitor to ensure that we will see a second year of ending above the 25%. But at the end of fiscal years 23 and 22, we made significant transfers into the capital investment fund based on the board's adopted policy, which has helped fund our capacity to issue future debt. We do anticipate that we will end fiscal year 27, or the current fiscal year 26, in a similar position. We will likely hit that 25% mark, but we don't anticipate exceeding that by much at the end of this fiscal year. So for the upcoming fiscal year, fund balance appropriations total $3.3 million in the recommended budget for fiscal year 27. Within the general fund, that's $680,000, and this is to cover the gap between estimated expenses and revenue without raising property taxes, and $204,000 in ARP funding for the body scanner that is within the recommended CIP for the detention center. Within the health fund, there's $385,000 designated in fund balance as a placeholder due to delayed timing of state and federal funds. And within the library fund and Register of Deeds technology, there is an appropriation of fund balance to spend down some reserves. And within DSS, there's a $1 million placeholder, which is what we had for this fiscal year as well, again, due to the timing of state and federal funds. And we're also allocating $1 million from fund balance for renovations to the Human Services building. And we will expect to receive about 50% of that in reimbursements from the state to return to the DSS fund balance. Any questions so far? Would y'all like me to keep going? Okay, keep going. Here are your categories of expenditures within the general fund, and these are by function. As I mentioned within the budget document, there's a description of which departments are contained within each function. Public safety, human services, and education make up the bulk of the expenditures in the general fund. Some highlights here. I do want to note operating costs are impacted by the rising cost of services, the contracts that we have, supplies, fuel, maintenance expenses, as well as the cost of the workforce and our personnel. So the bulk of the increases is within the category of personnel. And I've mentioned some of those increases that we're facing there. So as far as new positions go, there are 7 within the recommended budget, and the total budgetary impact is just over $450,000 of adding these 7 new positions. Within DSS, there is an additional CPS social worker IAT. There's offsetting revenues for that position. Within elections, we would be adding a 3rd member to their staff, which is currently 2 full-time positions, an election administrative specialist, and we would be reducing their part-time budget to offset the addition of this full-time position. An EMS assistant chief is funded for 6 months within the budget to be filled effective January 1st, and that has higher operating costs associated with that due to medical supplies associated with that position and other one-time expenses for furnishing an office and other items. General services, we would be adding a full-time custodial technician as well as some part-time positions to work alongside this full-time employee within the Human Services building. And so the cost of the full-time position is offset by removing the contract that we currently have in place for custodial services for the Human Services building. And that contract is greater than that $60,000 included there, but that would fund this position plus some of the part-time expenses as well. And we do anticipate services will improve as a result of providing those services with our in-house staff within the General Services Department. For the Sheriff's Office, they have requested a county resource officer, and this position would spend approximately half of its time in social services. We currently contract for a security officer throughout the day at social services, so we would reduce that contract, and that would offset the addition of this county resource officer, who would also be responsible for circulating amongst other county buildings, providing assistance to county staff, checking on other county facilities, and staffing our board meetings. And then within the tax office, we did have a peer review study conducted by the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners in the current fiscal year. They recommended several new positions, 6 or so, based on our current staffing levels and the demands on that department. Russell did request 3 through this budget process, and we have prioritized 2 to fund through the recommended budget. So those are the 7 positions that we have included.
I have a question.
Yes.
When we get back to the positions, I know with this information, looking over a presentation that EMS had done presented to the public. And I know with DSS, there are state and federal guidelines of workers to supervisors, making sure that you don't have you have to have 5 workers per supervisor and things like that. So when I was looking at the EMS presentation, and I don't know if with paramedics, is it something in place like that? Is it the same type thing?
I can follow up
Okay.
with the Emergency Services Department and bring that information back to y'all. in
Okay,
form
because
of
I
an
was looking
update.
at how many is needed, how many they have, and I know with DSS at the state level, and sometimes when the feds will come in to do QA or whatever, that will put pressure on the county, and then that impacted the quality of work and things like that. So I didn't know if it was something along the same lines when it comes to EMS, when I was seeing what's current, what they're seeing in the future, but what's needed or required based on their staffing numbers.
Sure, let me get that
Okay.
information and follow up with the board on it.
All right, thank you.
Very good question. Okay, so as far as vehicles go, we did receive a request for more vehicles than are being recommended. It was either 16 or 18 total. So I'm recommending 12 fleet vehicles after prioritizing those requests. And then additionally, there are 2 PATS vans and 1 PATS bus that are scheduled for replacement in the upcoming fiscal year. As far as the PATS vehicles go, the county is only responsible for 10% of those costs. So there's about $36,000 budgeted to go towards the 3 PATS vehicles. With the other 12 recommended vehicles, 8 would be going to the sheriff's office, 1 to animal control, 1 to community risk reduction, which is for the fire marshal, 1 for general services, and 1 for person industries. So vehicle replacement criteria includes age, whether or not they've been experiencing mechanical issues, and mileage. So the total budget for fleet replacements in the upcoming year is $689,000, and that is a decrease over the current year's budget for fleet.
So you're not adding 12 new vehicles, you're just replacing 12?
Right, yes. Okay, supporting the county workforce, so that cost of living adjustment across all funds equals approximately $1.1 million to implement, because this is a 3% salary increase plus increases in, the FICA that the county pays, Social Security, as well as retirement system contributions associated with the salary increase. Merit pay increases the budget by about $455,000. This is budgeted at an average of 2.5% per employee, and employees receive those salary increases on their anniversary dates tied to their performance evaluation, if they are meeting standards or exceeding standards. And then with longevity pay, the budget for that is about $350,000. We are facing increasing mandatory retirement system contributions due to the required contribution by the state for us to fund employee retirement benefits. And so that increases the budget by about $468,000 for next year. And then our self-funded health insurance premiums go up by just over $700,000. And then again, we are working on the public safety pay study to calculate the final impacts there. But just in that, you can see the growth for personnel and the corresponding overall increase to the budget. A lot, or the majority of that, is going towards supporting the employees, kind of taking care of our county workforce. So within the Fire and Rescue Services Fund, this is a separate fund from the general fund, and it is supported entirely by the Fire and Rescue District tax. That remains at 4 cents. As noted before, it's increasing by about $154,000 this year. Within that fund, there is a 2% increase going to Roxborough Fire for the services that they provide in the unincorporated areas of the county. And we do have a contract in place with them that provides for an automatic 2% increase every 2 years. The volunteer departments received their 2% increase in the current fiscal year. And then this budget does continue part-time staffing. It increases the hourly rate from $18 to $20 for the part-time fire personnel, and it sets the budget at 100% funding. We've not had the budget at a 100% funding level because they are not fully staffed, but we did have the available funding and went ahead and built that in just to be able to keep track of what that looks like for full funding. But we do anticipate there will be funds remaining in that line item at the end of the year that would revert back to fund balance for the Fire and Rescue Services District Tax Fund. Nonprofit request, the one that we have is from the Person County Museum of History. The board has been investing in additional funding in the museum over the last few years. As a reminder, the museum does operate out of county-owned facilities. So this is an investment in the county property as well as the museum as a service to the community. And so the museum has requested $40,000 again for fiscal year 27. And this is to support campus infrastructure updates and operational expenses as they work towards self-sustainability within their fundraising and program fees and grant funding that they receive. For Person County Schools, their request was for a total of $15.8 million for current expenses, and that was a 10.74% increase over the current year funding. I am recommending $15 million, that's rounded, but that's a 5.15% increase over the current funding, which is greater than the growth of our overall budget. Their regular capital request is $530,000. I'm recommending full funding for that. And I'm recommending funding their technology request at a slightly lower amount of $453,000 than the $500,000 they requested. We do have significant funding within the capital improvement plan for school improvements, and debt service estimates for the upcoming fiscal year on the school system's debt will be about $1.5 million. So that is total funding in next year's budget of just over $31 million for the school system for operating and capital needs. And as noted, about $10 million of that total is financed by debt. For Piedmont Community College, their request was for $2 million. That was a 9.43% increase over the current year expenses. And I'm recommending $1.9 million, which is a 3% increase. We continue to fund the small business incubator with a slight increase from $10,000 to $10,300. And then capital requests were $54,800, and I'm recommending full funding. And then the CIP funds various projects, and debt service is estimated at $666,000. So the total funding for Piedmont Community College in fiscal year 27 for this budget is $3.3 million. The next steps in the budget process. We do have a public hearing scheduled for June 1st. It's at 6 p.m. in the auditorium. And then I would like to talk with the board about scheduling budget work sessions. So I have provided several options up there based on availability that I received from commissioners. And if you all could consult your calendars and choose a date or two. We generally notice these as special meetings in advance of each of these budget work sessions, and publicize those for the public to attend as they are available. So that's it for my presentation. Copies of the budget, these hard copy books will be available in the clerk's office here in the county office building, as well as in the library. And anyone with questions is welcome to call the county manager's office, and I will be glad to talk through those questions. And we will also have the budget posted on the county website, so you may go there for budget information as well as a lot of other valuable public information. So we are at the point where I'll be happy to answer any questions or receive any other feedback that the board may have.
Questions from the board? All right. Please go ahead and consider some dates for our budget work sessions. And we'll have the county manager follow back up with the individual board members to come up with dates that will accommodate everyone's schedule. Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome.
All right. Item 8C, authorization to spend settlement funds. Janet Clayton.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Person County engaged with other counties and municipalities across the nation as part of a national opioid litigation. And several years ago, they were granted a $56 million national settlement. Person County is slated to receive approximately $4.8 million over the next 16 years of this settlement. Person County currently has received approximately $1.8 million. There is an MOA which governs the expenditures, expectations, and reporting requirements for each county. And as coordinator of the committee, I work with the county finance department and our sub-recipients to make sure that all the reporting requirements and expenditures are correct. In October of 2022, this board established the Opioid Settlement Advisory Committee, which is composed of 13 positions representing various stakeholder groups. Person County's overdose death rate, according to the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services data, it continues to be high. In 2025, there were 8 overdose-related deaths, which is a rate of 19.9 per 100,000. This is a 33% decrease from the previous year. For this particular statistic, Person County is considered to be in the middle range in comparison to other North Carolina counties. However, for Person County's estimated overdose death rate due to illicit opioid overdoses, the rate was 100 per 100,000, meaning that all 8 were suspected to be opioid related. This rate puts Person County in the highest rates among other counties in the state. Person County elected to follow the option A of the MOA, which includes 12 permitted high-impact abatement strategies. Currently, there are 3 funded initiatives. One is Strategy 6, which is early intervention and is an initiative through Person County schools. This initiative serves all schools, but is primarily concentrated at Person High School and both northern and southern middle schools. During the first year, there were 104 students served by the Substance Use Education and Support Program, or SUES, multiple staff, parent, and community trainings and events. But beyond substance-related services, the district also addressed broader mental health needs. Students and families expressing concerns about anxiety, depression, and other challenges were referred to appropriate levels of care, including outpatient therapy, intensive home services, and other wraparound services. Referrals were also made to the co-located mental health services within the schools. For this initiative, Person County Schools utilizes a licensed clinical social worker associate as well as a school psychologist to coordinate and provide the services. The amount allocated to Person County Schools was $300,000 over 2 years. The second strategy is Strategy 8 for Post-Overdose Response Team, or PORT, through Person County Emergency Medical Services. The PORT is a pilot program that is part of the larger overall Mobile Integrated Healthcare Initiative to help address specific needs for those individuals that suffer opioid substance use disorder in a timely manner after they experience a non-fatal overdose event. The first year was utilized for startup, setting up policies and procedures, securing software. And then the program has been, since then, the first follow-up point of contact that allows the team to visit an individual within the first 24 to 72 hours, provide them counseling and access to support services that can include harm reduction services for active substance abuse users, treatment services for substance abuse users looking to stop or reduce their substance abuse, and connection to other social and health services. Secondly, the program is an education and advocacy program. Services include opioid medication education, naloxone training, and overdose prevention strategies. From January 1 of 2025 to December 1 of 2025, there were 66 suspected opioid overdose calls. 42 of those received one or more multiple doses of naloxone. The amount allocated to Person County EMS was $407,517 over 2 years. The third strategy was Strategy 4 for recovery housing support. Funding was allocated to support the Freedom House Recovery Center halfway house for 1 year of startup funding. Renovations have now been completed and all information has been submitted to the state for final licensure approval. This halfway house will be fully staffed 24/7 with trained staff. Substance use halfway houses work in conjunction with outpatient clinics to provide a full continuum of care for individuals starting or restarting their journey. This program is a 6-month residential treatment program, and clients are connected with peer support specialists and other needed appointments. They are expected to engage in substance abuse comprehensive outpatient treatment for the first 60 days. The amount allocated to Person County to Freedom House Recovery Center for this initiative was $2,114 over a 1 year period. So for the current year of activities for the Opioid Settlement Advisory Committee, we sought community input through a survey which received 142 responses. Community meetings were held both in June of 2025 and December of 2025. The top 3 priorities that came out of those meetings and the surveys were recovery support, early intervention, and mental health crisis services. 3 of the 12 permitted high-impact abatement strategies of Option A of the MOA. An RFA was released in January of 26 with the submission deadline of February of 26. After extensive review of the state of the opioid epidemic in Person County, other policy data, the North Carolina MOA, and in good consideration of financial stewardship principles, the committee recommends the following strategies to be approved by the Board of Commissioners. We recommend that the extension of the funding expenditure periods of the current 3 strategies to be extended to June 30 of 2027, allowing the originally allocated amounts to be utilized during fiscal year 27. The remaining unallocated balance of $881,817.32. We recommend a portion of that be allocated to a 4th strategy. The additional strategy is to continue and expand the early intervention strategy through Person County schools. This would strengthen early identification, intervention, and structured follow-up for youth at risk of substance misuse, including opioid misuse, before progression to opioid use disorder or overdose. The Opioid Settlement Advisory Committee recommends funding this initiative at $401,234.87. This will leave approximately $480,582 for future allocations prior to receiving any further payments. The Opioid Settlement Advisory Committee plans to issue another RFA in September and then bring further recommendations to this board in December.
Any questions for the presenter?
Are we utilizing the services of personal family medicine on this, any and all?
I believe that the port team has a relationship with that as well as Person County Schools.
Okay, so, you're not allocating any more money to the first three, you're just asking that the money that was already designated for that can be allowed to continue another year to
Yes.
bring those to completion?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so I see some of the people in the room. Is this is the thing that Jenna Reagan oversees for Person County Schools? And then the one for EMS, Tom, is this the program you talked about at the Good Morning Coffee Hour? And so that was a pilot, you said, so does that allow it to continue, or? And so the additional funds is just going towards the Person County Schools.
Any other questions? Having hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the resolution to authorize the end date extension for the previous authorized strategies from June 30th, 2026 to June 30th, 2027, and to authorize the use of $401,234.88 from opioid settlement funds for use in the identified spending strategy of early intervention for a period beginning July 1st, 2026 and concluding June 30th, 2028.
So moved.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Okay. Any further discussion? Having hearing none, all in favor, please vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion's been approved. Thank you. All right. Item 8D, initial steps for general obligation school bonds, notice of intent and application authorization. Tracy Clayton, Dr. Rodney Peterson.
Y'all can tell we coordinated, right? Good morning. I am here to briefly walk you through a calendar that you should have received about the general obligation bond referendum and all the steps that we have to take. The process is governed by state law and requires several board actions, publications, and coordination with the local government commission, the Board of Elections, and staff. In your calendar, I wanted to point out a few key board actions and special meetings that have been scheduled. Today, if you approve this, you will approve a resolution directing the publication of a notice of intent to apply to the LGC. You will approve a resolution authorizing me to apply to the LGC. And you will allocate $100,000 towards issuance costs to be taken out of the CIF fund. June 15th, we will introduce the bond order and adopt a resolution setting a public hearing. July 6th, you will have to have a special hearing which will adopt the resolution setting the bond referendum. On December 16th as well, you will have to, the board will have to have a special hearing to adopt and declare the results of the election for or against the GO bond. After the bond order is introduced on June 15th, there will be a public hearing on July 6th, or I will have to prepare and file a statement of disclosure. This statement of disclosure will then give the formal tax rate that will be the anticipated increase for the GO bond. Currently, we have that at about 9.5%, 9.5 cents, sorry. But I'm working with the debt consultants to make sure that we are correct in that number. Then the clerk will file a disclosure, will be filed with the clerk of the board, the local government commission, and the Board of Elections. Some other critical dates that I want to bring to your attention is on May 21st, we have to publish a notice of intent. On May 30th, we have to file this application with the LGC. June 25th, we have to publish the special hearing notice. July 9th, we will publish the adopted bond order and deliver the referendum of resolution to the Board of Elections. September 24th and October 1st, we will publish 2 required special bond referendum notices. And then on November 3rd, there will be Election Day, and shortly thereafter, if approved, we will file with the LGC formally. This is a very tight calendar. It is probably not subject to change because everything is very regimented in the times and the dates that have to be between when we publish a notice and when you have a hearing and when you adopt a resolution.
You got July 6th.
I do.
That's not a scheduled
No.
meeting.
You have 2 special meetings scheduled, July 6th and December 16th. This is a very compressed time schedule. Ideally, we would have started this process earlier, and I would not have had to put special meetings on your calendar. But if you do not meet these deadlines, we will not meet the Board of Elections deadline.
Okay, just make a note, I will not be, present for that meeting as I'd be out of town.
Okay.
For that, so the, vice chair would have to run that special call meeting on that. All right, members of the board, any questions?
What was your December date?
December 16th.
May I make a
Yes,
couple
ma'am,
comments?
please.
So we are going to have a presentation from Dr. Peterson that will go into the need from the school system for the GO bonds. And I also want to note that the tax rate that Tracy shared is calculated based on issuing the GO bonds and not issuing that third set of limited obligation bonds that the county is currently committed to. So we pull back, we do the second issuance in this fiscal year, but would not issue the third round of LOBs if this were approved. And instead, the school system would proceed with the plans that will be presented to you today. So this would significantly increase the county's debt, but we are working closely with our financial advisors to ensure that we are making the appropriate plans to be able to take on that debt load if it is ultimately approved by the public, that we have everything in place to be able to move forward to accomplish these projects and maintain sound financial position for the county.
Any other comments, discussion? All right. Well, I have three motions, and if the board will permit me, I will make the motions myself to make sure that we,
Do you want to listen to Dr. Peterson's
Oh,
presentation first?
okay. I didn't think you wanted to come up here.
Did they get the presentation? Because I did send
I-
them out
I-
to Kathy yesterday.
Yeah, I emailed it this morning, so it's available.
Now, if you want to go ahead and, I don't feel more than free. Our board wanted me to convey they appreciate all the working relationships we've had, I know since I've been here. And, the attention that you take to the needs of our school system have not gone unnoticed. I've had an opportunity to work with many of my colleagues around the state, and they don't have the relationships that we do with our board and commissioners, and I really appreciate that. We also understand that the request that we're making is not lightly. Our board really wrestled with various options of what they could possibly do in order to minimize the impact that it would have on the tax rate. And we also want to thank Manager Kathy and her staff, knowing that this is a compressed time frame, but we feel like that the needs are here. Today we're going to talk about the need for what our board has approved to present to you as a new middle school. And we will identify three areas for reasons why. Attendance in our elementary schools, potential growth, and then we have significant infrastructure needs that could or could not come due very quickly. And I'll go through those this morning. Right now, this is our current capacity charts, and you'll see 22, 23, and I noticed we have Senator Garson with us today, or Garson with us, and this is a state impact. This isn't a local impact. This is K-3 class size law, and our original capacities that we have at our schools are not the capacities that we can have based on the current rules that we have in place with K-3 class size. So if you look at our current enrollment versus our capacities, you'll notice that Helena, North End, Oak Lane, and Stories Creek, and Woodland are all over the number of capacity for students that we have. South isn't. One of the things that our board did do last year when we started looking at the needs that we have in our district was they did do a district reassignment of South and Helena. They changed the attendance boundaries, which put some pressure on Helena, but it took a lot of pressure off South because the potential growth that we see coming to Person County would be in the South Attendance area. And so we did make that move. But we feel like Helena could be sustained because of the newer setting, larger classes, and they do meet the DPI regs because that building was built in the year 2000. South Elementary School, we're going to see some compression there as early as this year, and not necessarily for what we anticipate as growth, but the need that we have in early intervention. A lot of people in our community do not understand that the school system serves ages 3 through 21 in our exceptional children. We have had a state complaint at our early intervention, which serves 3-year-olds, that we do not have a viable all-day program for those special needs students. And so we're going to have to put a classroom over at South Elementary School to serve that, which also minimizes the number of spaces that we have for our K-12 students. Also, that's going to be happening at Oak Lane, as Manager Kathy mentioned, once the second law is formed or is passed or submitted back, we will begin some ADA and safety projects at South. That will reduce the number of classes that South has. We learned very clearly at Person High School when we did that project there. A lot of the public sees what we did outside, but we did just as much on the inside of that school, thanks to your support. And mainly for the number of toilets based on the number of kids that we have. And we had to substantially increase that, which we were having to take classroom space and make them into bathroom spaces. So even at Person High School, that 1,500 capacity is probably not where it's at. We haven't redone the capacity charts, and we'll do those soon. But we do have reduced spacing at Person as a result of that. So as we do the ADA projects and we have to put in lifts or we have to put in elevators in our school because cafeterias are on bottom floors and we serve on main floors, then you are going to lose classroom space as we do that. So that's just one of the initial opportunities that we had as a district in looking at how we can serve the students of Person County effectively and lawfully. And again, one of the things that our board did here was they did do an attendance boundary change for Helena and South. So that's we're anticipating, and I know we can debate that number. We roughly get 0.8 students per new door. The number for what I call condo space, mixed use space, whatnot, that number usually goes up, especially if it's modified for income. We generally see about 1.3, 1.4 students per door for those spaces. As I mentioned before, we've also done the realignment, and we're changing the scope. The board has asked for the scope of law to be changed to add the spaces at Storrs Creek, knowing that we're going to need classroom space, and that was the reason why we asked that scope of work change, so that we could build out and put 4 new classrooms and a banquette of bathrooms at Storrs Creek Elementary. And that will be the first project that will begin once the second lot is sold. Other needs is we identified back in 2017 when I was here. I think this board commissioned the facility studies, and now we're kind of working through that study. So all the CIP requests that you get is not haphazardly. Everything that we're asking for is directly related to the CIP. One of the things I have learned, and I think we need to do, because we have spent, I think y'all call it rescue funds, we call it COVID money. Downstairs, we had to spend hours. We spent 80% of our COVID money updating the heating and air systems in our schools. One of the things I'm going to ask operations to do is that I think we need to start getting a running list of major purchases that have to happen, so that you know when things come due, so that we can work together to adequately plan for that. Because what I foresee is everything's going to come due at the same time. And so we're going to need to start spacing that out over the next 10 to 15 years. We do have water quality issues and quantity issues at 3 of our rural schools. The 3 schools I'm going to identify today, they are on their last well. In other words, we can't, based on North Carolina water quality standards and where we can place a well, where we can't add another well on either one of these properties. The north end well was installed in '88. Rural Water tells us that for a commercial well like this that serves a school, you can guarantee about 20 years, but after 20 years, you're working on borrowed time. And as you see on this particular well, when it was installed, it was getting 20 gallons, and now we're only getting 12 gallons per minute. Other thing that I've learned over the last 3 months, thanks to Paul Phillips, is we have vein wells here, and when vein wells dry, we can't filter. That means they're dry. Unlike where I came from, you can filter water, and so there is concern with this. They are on their third and last well since 1956. This is a 1956 building. So one of the things, and the reason why this has come up, is because we felt like as a system, it may be cheaper just to add wings at schools and then do a full reassignment of all of the schools. And I don't think we would be permitted water-wise to do a extension at either North End, Oak Lane, nor Woodland because of the well opportunities that we would have there. If you look at Oak Lane Elementary, their well, again, 1956 is the first date. Their well's at 200 feet, and that well's been in place since 2002. So that well is 24 years old. We've had inspections of our wells since, or our towers since, I think it was March or April that they came out and did it. We have a significant leak at Oak Lane, and that's not in the CIP, but it's going to cost us about $150,000 just to fix the leak and do the lining in that well or that holding tank for this summer. At Woodland Elementary School, they're on their last well. It's at 600 feet, and they're only getting 10 gallons a minute. At one point, they were getting, before this last well was being dug, they were getting 2.5 gallons per minute, and we can't function as a school with that. They are on their last well again, and that school again was built in 56. We do have leaks in this holding tower, and we're waiting cost to see what it's going to cost to fix that particular tower this summer. We do have, this is the school that I had mentioned. I believe we were all together, some of us together, up in Raleigh not too long ago. This is the school that we have to do some chemical work to in order to get the water to be water quality drinking. And this is the reason, this school and the other 3 schools are the reason why we hired the consultant at $60,000 that I expressed to y'all earlier, because they have to do all of the inspections and submit all our testing to North Carolina Water Quality. Another opportunity we got, as part of the Clean Classrooms for Carolina with RTI, we've had a group that's come out and did a survey of all of our schools, looking at some of the needs that we would have. Woodland's got lead paint all over the school, and Woodland's got asbestos all over the school. What we were wanting to do this summer was to scrape the paint on a lot of the school and then repaint it just to fix it up a little bit. We can't do that. That's going to require lead abatement. And then we started looking at, okay, well, let's talk about asbestos, because we had a flooding. I don't know if y'all know, we had a flooding there over the weekend, last 2 weekends ago. Well, I guess it had been not this past weekend, but the weekend before. And we now have asbestos tiles popping up everywhere. It's just a lot of work that needs to be done at Woodland. The testing has revealed significant lead paint deficiencies on our exterior doors, windows, and roof beams. We're not going to be able to abate asbestos around the windows. The windows are going to need to be replaced, all of them. And this also includes the one that have been painted over from the drop ceilings. If you go around the school, you'll see some windows at the top. I was waiting for estimated costs before I gave you this presentation. We don't have it, but we're guessing in the neighborhood of several million for this. The lead has to be taken off in environmental suits. They have to can it. They have to send a roller. It has to be tested, and it has to be destroyed. And we don't know the impact of that at this point. But that's an opportunity that we have in addition to the well over at Woodland. And so, again, the board looked at several options, and we were really trying to do our best to take one of the first 2 options, where we would take a middle school, put all of our kids on one campus for the middle school, and then take the other middle school and make it an elementary. What we're anticipating with the needs that we have without any wells going out is the need for about 1,000 seats, 1,000 to 1,200 seats. And where do we try to find that out in our current infrastructure that we have in place? When we started looking at the model, and option 1 or 2 was somewhere around the $75 million range, and it's not solving future need. Matter of fact, it would just be mitigating what we know that we need to have now. I think where our board settled was the new middle school, because not only would it solve the current need, it would also get us somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,500 seat capacity, which we feel like could get us the next 10 years. And so they were looking over length versus cost. And although the new middle school does cost a little bit, cost about $30 million more, we feel like that the first 2 options were just mitigating what we need, and we were going to need additional space as we move forward. We understand tremendously the impact that this would have on your debt model. I don't think, again, that the board went through this lightly. I think we've been working on some kind of options for the last 2 years. It's really come to head as we've done more inspection than what we could possibly do in our schools. We've been monitoring Ms. Johnson and the Roxborough Planning Department. She's been awesome in getting us information about what's coming, what's not coming. But our board is looking at future. If you're looking at the option 3 model, your timeline is going to be compressed. Our timeline is going to be long, because we would then, once, if it's all gets approved, you're looking at a 2.5 year before occupancy. And that's with the build and all the permitting and all that we would have to go through. And us going to have to go through DPI and all that wonderful stuff that for our external stakeholders. This will be, if you were to ask the voters to put this out and the voters were to approve, this will be the conceptual plan for the school. I have literally walked this school. We've been working with performance services consultants, and they're a little new to North Carolina, so we took our own money and went up and saw a school that they do and that they do regularly, and I think this will be a great fit for the space that has been identified for us to put this on. This is the conceptual view of what that school would look like, and then this was, I don't know if they can hit play wherever the technology people are in the space. They may not have it. It may not work. But anyway, that's kind of the view there. And again, all of our spaces are available to public use. All of our spaces are available to your park and rec. I think we have a really good articulation agreement with that. And I'm thinking on the outside of the school, this would add additional space for park and rec too. But I am here for questions. I have Ms. Tillman, our chair, and Ms. Tillett are here. They were on the committee that kind of served in this capacity. I have Mr. Phillips with me, and Ms. Reagan's here, but I don't think she wants to answer any questions about this.
Questions from the board members to Dr. Peterson?
Dr. Peterson, with northern middle and southern middle, are there any lead and asbestos issues with those schools if we move forward with this plan?
I'm not aware. I think we had everything has been screened. Is that correct?
Southern Middle School still has some asbestos, but no lead paint. Northern hasn't either, but it's very little at Southern.
What would your options be if we had a catastrophic well failure at one of those 3 rural schools?
Our board would have to reassign those students to the nearest elementary. You're looking at $40,000 for a mobile unit just for the lease. That doesn't include water, sewer to it. It doesn't include infrastructure like internet to it. It doesn't include walkways to it, and it doesn't include canopies for protection for rain. And if we did look at that option in lieu of doing a new school, and you're looking at needing 40, I think it was 43 at 1.8 million just for a lease for a mobile unit. We haven't gotten the price for the infrastructure that we get out there to it.
I just wanna repeat what Paul said with the microphone. You said no lead at Southern, but some asbestos.
Yeah, we have asbestos, and we're doing the abatement of all of the asbestos at our school. Woodland, the entire school would need to be abated. We have taken our renovation money that we get from the lottery fund. I think it's in the neighborhood of $300 and some odd $1,000. We've done most of that work already at North End. We've done most of, if not all of the work at Oak Lane Elementary. Those two schools look pretty new from the inside, and we did do at North End with the renovation money. We did a new queuing for that school to get cars off the road. So the schools themselves are in pretty good shape. It's the wells that we're concerned about.
I just had a comment, cause it was hard to listen to when you were describing the conditions of some of the schools, knowing that these are the buildings that our children are in, and then on top of that, some of us would not live in an environment if we knew some of those things were going on, much less as Person County kids. And I know the school system is doing the best they can, and I appreciate you acknowledging what the commissioners are doing. But you know, it's good, but at the same time, hard to hear the condition of the buildings that our children of this county are expected to be safe and to learn in a safe and healthy environment. Because you know, there are situations where I know the health department may have come in when I was working with families if they lived in homes that had certain things going on, and such as the things that you're describing, if you really can't drink the water or things like that. So I just hope that we could come to some type of agreement to make sure that our children will have a safe and healthy environment to learn in this county.
I appreciate the comment. I've had 3 kids go through Woodland. Woodland's a great school. I do put it up against any school in the state. I mean, their performance is off the charts. Staff there is awesome. Parent support there is awesome. That lead report, I believe, has been filed, and we did make contact to the health department. So I'm not sure what they would do with the report. I know that it goes online for everybody to see.
So for the rate that the finance officer gave, that's not to say if this were approved, we would be at that. I mean, we could retire it early if there were more increased tax revenue through other means, industrial development, that kind of thing, right?
You can retire the debt early,
Or reduce the,
the tax rate?
Yes.
Yes, that's rate based on the rate of a penny now.
And I don't think I'd explain, but the bond that you're considering to put on the ballot would do the middle school and then do the retrofit of both the middle schools and transition them to elementary schools.
Any further discussion? Thank you, Dr. Peters.
Thank you.
And I will say, it's been 26 years since we've had a new school in this county. It's time. And, you know, heard about that well at North End. I was in 2nd grade with Deputy Gill at North End in '88. So,
Kyle, I was in 5th or 6th grade. We were there at the same time.
yeah, small world. So, members of the board, as I stated before, there's several motions that he made, and the board would permit me to make the motions. Normally, the chairman doesn't make motions, but I would do it in this case. The first motion to adopt a resolution directing the publication of notice of intention to apply to the Local Government Commission, LGC, for approval of bonds. That is the motion on the floor. Any discussion? Having hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion's been approved. I make a motion to adopt the resolution making certain statements of fact concerning the proposed bond issue and authorizing the application to the LGC. That is the motion on the floor. Any discussion? Having hearing none, all in favor, please vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion's been approved. I make a motion to authorize the chief financial officer to advance up to $100,000 from the Capital Investment Fund to pay for the bond issuance costs prior to the issuance of sale of the bonds, with such advances to be reimbursed from bond proceeds upon closing. That is the motion on the floor. Any discussion? Having hearing none, all in favor, please vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Motion's been approved. Chairman's report. At this time, I would like to recognize a special guest. A couple weeks ago, I had the privilege of going to the General Assembly and met our newest state senator. At this time, the chair would like to recognize State Senator Jonah Garson to come up and introduce yourself to the county and the board, and glad to have you. And on behalf of Person County, we welcome you being here today.
Thank you, Chair. Jonah Garson, newly appointed state senator for District 23, which, for folks who don't know, is Caswell, Orange, and Person counties. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm grateful for the invitation from the chair to be here. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to sit down and watch y'all's budgeting meeting session. This is going on across the state right now. It's going on across the counties. It's going on the school board level, the municipal level. And, you know, I would be remiss if I didn't just mention the fact that it is ongoing and 315 days plus late at the state level, which makes y'all's jobs a little bit more complicated. That's an understatement. My hope is to turn around 10 years from now in the state Senate and say that working shoulder to shoulder with you all and taking cues from you all, that we were able to do great things from Person County. I was an intern 16 years ago for the state senator who represented this county, also from Orange County like me. One thing that I've said to your chair, I'll say to the folks here, I'll say to the folks in this room, is that when you have a district, I'm just going to acknowledge this elephant in the room, when you have a district that includes Orange County in the mix, there is a tendency for the Orange County interest to expand to fill the time and energy. It is just what happens. I have watched it with successive legislators, all with good intentions, all with different styles. It is my intention to get it right and to make sure that Person County gets pride of place in my representation, and that you all feel like I'm going to Raleigh, along with the dean of this delegation, your sitting state rep, to work for you all. One thing that I often do not talk about when I talk about my background is what I do to actually make money and put bread on my table, which is I'm a business litigator. I'm a business attorney. I help solve disputes, often with North Carolina's closely held family companies that have been around and making contributions to the state for generations. And one thing I know from that work is that from a shared set of objectives, sometimes some of the knottiest issues, the knottiest problems, are different opinions about the means to the end. And sometimes you have broad alignment on objectives, and people, even well-intentioned people, even the smartest people, get caught up in the means to ends and means to ends conflict. It is my goal not to get so caught up, and to focus on bottom line outcomes, and to not substitute my judgment about the best means to an end for the judgment of the leaders of this county. That is my style. That is the orientation I'm going to bring to this job. The last thing I will say, there's a lot of good, the bad, the ugly happening in Raleigh right now. Some of the good is that Nate Denny was unanimously approved as our new Secretary of Department of Information Technology. And for a county like Person, where over the years to come, y'all are going to be having to deal with some very tough last mile broadband build out issues. And as someone who's represented the NCDIT on what I will just characterize loosely as broadband grift issues, I feel very strongly that Nate Denny is the person to take forward this very important work at this phase of things. And it was one of the most positive things. Again, unanimity in his approval at committee level and in session. And it is one of the most positive things to come out of Raleigh in the past few weeks since I've had this job. Again, thank you all very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for this recognition. And I'm going to give it my all and then some for this county and for you all.
Thank you, Senator, and look forward to working with you in the future. You've heard some concerns, especially the most recent concern regarding our schools, and hope you retain a great relationship with this board and other boards of this county, along with the residents of Person County as well.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Manager's report.
Okay, I'd like to recognize Jennifer Brown, who is with us this morning. She currently serves as our Family Consumer Science Extension Agent and has served Person County since 2013, and she has been appointed as our new Cooperative Extension Director effective June 1st. So congratulations, Jennifer, and thanks for being here today. That's it.
Vice Chair Wilburn.
Thank you. Since our last meeting, I attended Good Morning Coffee Hours put on by the Chamber by EMS and Guardian Ad Litem, and also a Business After Hours at Footwear Plus, who was the Chamber Small Business of the Year and is celebrating 80 years this year. I attended the RTRP board meeting as well as the State of a Region event. That was a great event that we had excellent participation locally. We had 2 commissioners there and 2 city council who both have overlap on the Economic Development Commission and the Chamber Board. So it's good to have, that exact group in that room to network and to hear about economic development initiatives that are going on across the region and the state. I am on the FTZ board, and so we had our quarterly meeting this month. Also, we have one Person County industry that has applied for an FTZ zone, and this past meeting we had a second industry. So I'm thankful that Person County is now represented on that board. I attended the National Day of Prayer event that was put on by the Veterans Council. That was one of the little windows that we had a little bit of rain, so thank you to Westwood Baptist Church for hosting that at the last minute. I had my budget meeting with the manager. I attended the planning board meeting, and this past Friday and Saturday, I was at the 2-day Association of County Commissioners Board meeting in Western North Carolina. We had administrative things to discuss as a board, of course, but the big topic really was about all the different laws that are on the table regarding local control over taxes. And to the senator's point, I do hope that they get the budget adopted before we have to adopt ours, so we know how those changes will be rolled in and affect us locally. I do want to continue to beat that drum of the need for our economic development efforts and our industry expansion. We heard about the needs of the schools today, and our industry are our top taxpayers, and that is how we can most quickly grow our tax base. At the last meeting, we adopted a resolution to support Small Business Week, and I heard some comments after that well, maybe we don't even really need industry because small business here is making such a large impact. So I want to clarify that the statistics given in that as 53.6% of our county's private sector workforce, 83% of the county's businesses, 4,417 people employed. That used the Small Business Administration's definition of small business, which is any business under 500 employees. So that covers all of our manufacturers here with the exception of maybe Pollywood. Theirs is somewhat seasonal, so they go above that number sometimes. But I just want to stress that according to what the statistics that were read, manufacturing is also small business in Person County. There was another statistic given in our EDC meeting that said agriculture's impact in our county, and that number was $481.2 million in total ag value added. But if you look at how that was broken out, more than 300 million of that was attributed to products that are manufactured with tobacco, cotton, and well, not cotton here, but things like that. So, if we don't have a U.S. flu cured, then we're not going to do well with a tobacco farm. So that $300 million number did not include wholesaling, retailing, restaurants, and food service, but all that is wrapped up into the $481.2 million. So again, complementary, we need both, but our manufacturing plays a big role into that value added. One thing I want to go back to about the association meeting is that we had a commissioner in the room where their manager had already presented her recommended budget, or his or her, I don't know if they're the manager, but they included that if their county did not have unfunded mandates from higher government, they could lower their tax rate by 19 cents. So that's important to recognize as we consider our budget process. I also, piggybacking on the industrial investment, want to address some things, some emails that I've gotten about data centers and a recent article that was put out by an online publication that I would feel comfortable saying is left-leaning. In that article, they said the city of Roxborough, which controls the water and sewer infrastructure that could supply the mega park, hasn't signed NDAs with Microsoft, said City Manager Brooks Lockhart. The industrial site could receive up to 8 million gallons per day. And so the city manager requested for them to do a correction, which I'm trying to open. I can't get that to open now, but what he had told them is that the current permitted capacity is 5 million gallons a day for the water plant, and that water plant could be increased to 8 million gallons a day to serve the whole county from that. So he asked them to make a change in that, and he said that what he told them was that the mega park, which predates the Microsoft project, is able to supply 3 million gallons a day. And I will remind that I was the economic development director who applied for the grant to get the water line out there, oversaw the construction of the project, and I was told the entire time that the capacity without any upgrades for that line was 2 million gallons a day. So there may be some things that have been discovered since then, but there should be old marketing materials that show we marketed that for 2 million gallons a day. Regardless, the city manager has said in the public EDC meeting that with the numbers that he has received from Microsoft, that it would not even justify turning that line on. So the concerns, or what I get in the emails, is about the cost of electricity and the water usage. So I hope that I'm going to continue to talk about that, try to put that water usage issue to bed. The way that electric rates work is not by the county, it's by the territory served. Data centers are popular right now because they are meeting consumer demand. I've got 3 devices here right now, and we as consumers are driving the demand for data centers. It's not just some obscure thing out there that this is something they want to do for a lot of profit. It's a need, and as long as we continue to use these devices to create and consume data, they're going to go somewhere. And so whatever system they go on, yes, there's going to be an increased need for power to supply that and other uses. But the good thing about Person County is if that power plant is located here, we're going to get the tax base and the jobs for it. If that data center is located here, we're going to get the tax base and the jobs for it. And so the next thing people say is, well, they don't bring a lot of jobs. Well, they bring some jobs, and the jobs they bring are high paying. And that is one of the biggest issues we have with our existing employers, is not being able to find enough employees. So we cannot absorb a large industrial project that brings thousands of jobs or even hundreds of jobs with our workforce right now. But we hear the need that we have to grow our tax base, and that is something that data centers do tremendously. And I am continuing to put together statistics and numbers for how they have been able to help communities build schools and other places. And it's my intent to continue to use this time to share that information. Thank you.
Commissioner Thomas.
Yeah, I want to thank the county manager for all the hard work for this budget that she's given us and for her team. I know it took a lot of time, a lot of effort supporting that. We didn't have an increase because, as you've seen, what Dr. Peterson just gave us in the school board, that we need a school, and that's going to be on the ballot. And I don't want people to get stuck on. You don't want to get stuck on the tax rate, what it's going to be, because we need the school. I mean, it's a need. You heard him just say it. We hadn't had a new school in 24 years, so it's definitely a time that we need to prepare. And our county is growing, so I want to thank him for putting that together for us, and hopefully we can get this across.
Commissioner Royster.
Yes, good morning. Still morning. Thank you again to county manager and staff for what you've done with this budget. And I too had my individual meeting with the county manager, and I think at least one subsequent after I scheduled to answer some questions. Thank you, Senator Garson, for visiting us today. I want to also congratulate Jennifer Brown. So on one of my assigned boards, I'm a cooperative extension, so I'm looking forward to continue to work with you. Also, I want to congratulate Person County Health Department. I was holding on to this, and Janet was like, Antoinetta, don't say anything yet. But now I can publicly say for being accredited with honors. They met 146 out of 147 activities. So congratulations to Janet and her staff at the Person County Health Department. I also attended the Research Triangle Regional Partnership 2026 State of the Region meeting, which was great. Commissioner Wilburn has already spoke on that. But one thing I did take from that is how they highlighted the education system, how they're starting out when you're looking at economic development, preparing our kids in the middle and high schools, those programs that were highlighted, as well as the community colleges. And I think about our community college and the partnership between our public Person County school system and our community college coming together for some of these like with workforce, the CTE programs. I went on and registered my daughter. I was like, you're doing this, getting them prepared, because you know, we look at bringing jobs here, economic development, but it has to start somewhere. And what I've learned from some organizations and businesses, they're looking at how are you taking care of your folk, what type of educational systems that you have in your community. So we need to make sure that we're taking care of our own so we could get good industry here, because I don't want it to end up being somewhat like the data center. And I understand what Commissioner Wilburn was saying, but I hope it's a lesson learned for city and community county leaders, that we want industry here, but we don't want to do it by any means necessary. We want to make sure we're taking care of our natural resources and everything, and if they come here, that they are good neighbors to this community, as well as what you're going to do to be part of this community, give back to the community while you're here. I mentioned earlier this year, and I think Commissioner Long had also mentioned, actually going on a field, and I call it field trip, to tour a data center facility. I mentioned that back in February. I know it's one closer, but I was invited to Loudoun County, Virginia, which is a bit far, but I had received pros and cons from colleagues at the NACO conference in February, where some were happy about it, but then some said it made their community look like a computer, because it just kept adding on, and it's just a lot of data centers. Once they get started, they just keep coming, and I don't want that to happen here in Person County. So I think, you know, we have to just be cognizant of decisions that we make and making sure we're bringing what our county needs at the same time taking care of what we have here. Also, it's beginning to get hot. So I wanted to make sure we're being proactive when it comes to cooling stations. And I know during the winter months where we had the warming stations and the community had, requested I would volunteer or I could help out because you don't want to strain too much of our county employees who worked all week and some working over. But I don't know what we could set up to have a volunteer bank for like cooling and warming stations where it could be some of that responsibility with people who are willing to help out and volunteer during these times, help out the county with that. But let's just be proactive when looking at cooling stations because it's already supposed to be in the 90s today. And then the last thing I want to mention is looking at getting on somewhat of the same city vacation or leaves, the same vacation schedule as the city. I know the city celebrates Juneteenth, and I do know that it would cost the county approximately $47,000, give or take some. But it is a holiday, and I know the city celebrates that. So for the city and county to be on one accord with that, we can look into that in the future. It may be a little late to do it for this fiscal year because Juneteenth is coming up in about a month. But at least getting that on our schedule somewhere, some part of the agenda where we can also commemorate Juneteenth for the county, for our county as well, for Person County. I'm getting my words together, y'all. Didn't have coffee. But anyway, that's all that I have. But thank you all again for coming to this meeting this morning.
Commissioner Long.
Yes, sir. I too would like to thank Manager Kathy. I think I used up more time than I had allotted, but we had a good discussion about the budget, and it's apparent a lot of work has been put into that. And I did mention about the Microsoft tool. With all the attention that's going on in the community, I think it would really be a good idea if we could go up and tour their facilities in Borden and get a first-hand knowledge of not only of that facility, but with the elected officials there too, with the experiences that they've had. I was saddened to hear about the news about RCRC losing their funding for the homeless shelter, and it looks like our $60,000 that a previous board appropriated is gone. I'd like to thank Senator Garson. You know, Senator Kinnaird would tell you that this is your first challenge to bring us some money from Raleigh for this school need that we have. So you've got a challenge there. I know Ellie would challenge you on that. And I want to leave you with one last phrase that Senator Woodard always used, and that is that what's in the well will always come up in the bucket. Thank you.
All right. Having no further business to discuss, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion. All in favor, please vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Meeting's adjourned.